Well, folks, snowmobile morale has been at an all-time low. It's January 30th and it's 50 degrees out, flannel shirt weather. And honestly, nothing's been getting done in the shop because of it. But we just hit 1,000 subscribers like last week, so it's kind of giving me a kick in the pants. I'd appreciate it if you dropped a comment down below for what you think I should do for maybe 1,000 subscriber special coming up in a future video. And today I've decided we're going to be working on our 82 Liquifire skid. It's a little rough and it needs a bit of attention. So let's get into it and see what she actually needs. So up on the bench looking at our suspension, first thing we'll notice is that we do have a good amount of Hyfax left. It is a little bit worn down here, which is where they typically go first. But that's still a good enough amount that we're going to leave it this time. So I have had this out for a little while. Most of that is because I've been soaking down every single nut and bolt on this damn thing for maybe 2-3 weeks now, just spraying it down with WD-40. Hopefully that just makes our life a little bit easier. We will be going through all of our Bogey wheels. Our back wheels, the rubber is kind of, chewed up and dried cracked. You can see that right there. And those are getting replaced. The blue and silver is not correct, but I think we're going to go through and just get another set of blue wheels because they're kind of expensive and I don't want to replace all four. This is just a rider after all. We have an aftermarket shock. These never came with coilover shocks. It's just, shock absorber. If anybody knows what kind of shock this might be, let me know in the comments. It's, purple and, coilover. I've been looking at it all over and can't find any marks of any sort that would indicate, who made this thing or where it comes from. We're not going to touch this at all. We're going to leave it. That's cool. But our big main concern is this rear arm shaft. You can see it is a little bit curved. And that means somebody took her off a little bit of too big of a jump. Honestly, that rear arm is just beyond saving. You can't straighten it. You can't do anything. And the main issue with that is there's a aluminum shaft in here. And being that the shaft is bent, it can't actually rotate in there anymore. And if we come over to the sled and look at the hole that was in, it's actually worn it into an egg shape. And that is no bueno. So we definitely need to get this thing addressed, fixed, keep that from happening. I guess let's start taking this thing apart. Let's do our main springs first. These will just pop down. Then they roll off. Should just pop out. And the other side. Go. And then our spring bushings can just roll right off of there. These ones aren't too bad. They're only worn on this side, and really they wear right next to the tunnel. So if we just take and flip it around side for side, now it's almost brand new again. And we can use them like that. Let's get this front arm first since we're still trying to use that one. This one's a lost cause. As we're looking at it, this is just one big bolt that runs all the way through the shaft. So we'll take her off. And 9/16. My bolt is spinning, so that's good. It's not seized up in here, but we should be able to just drive it all the way out. That'll pop off. But before we do that, I want to take these front springs off first. And all there is to that is just these two little eye bolts here, and there's really nothing. They rotate on this spring, so that's why I soaked this up in WD-40 so well. They're just popping right off of there, so get these taken off, and this entire arm should then just flop down. Alrighty, so it's just flopping here. That's good. Try and get this bolt out. I think what we're gonna do is smack it with a mallet Yeah, that didn't come out too bad. So it's still pretty loose. Hopefully we can, and we're not going to be able to just pull it. So a trick that I have, I'm going to take a 9/16 wrench here, put it on here, and take the impact, and we're just going to spin it and pull on it. Um, well, we're getting there. There we go. Oh, we actually forgot to take the spring off, but that's a real long bolt. And now this arm should just lift right out if I had, taken the shock out. Um, well, now that it's off, we can get a good look at it. Obviously, it's been booger welded here, and we're actually going to have to come in and fix that again. You can see that crack right in there. That's not good. I tried finding a new arm, but no beans on that. And now this bushing down here, normally this is supposed to rotate in the tube, but these are aluminum, and being that it's so low on the suspension, they just get covered in snow, and the aluminum corrodes right into these things. So we're going to try taking it out, but chances are we're going to need to dissolve that thing out of there. And the same is going to go for the front shaft. You can see it rotates in these two ends, but the shaft itself in this tube doesn't rotate. So I think that's generally an issue, and what I've done in the past is I'll just take the hacksaw. It's right here is wide enough for the hacksaw to fit in, and I'll cut the shaft out, and then we can try getting that aluminum shaft out of here as well. Probably the same way we're going to have to dissolve this side out. So here it is in the vise, and yeah, we're just going to go to town at it. Well, just like that, it's out in 3 pieces. Now we're going to weld up that crack on the arm. And because I'm a farmer who likes to over-engineer things, I'm going to be reinforcing this section, so hopefully she never cracks again. Now, honestly, that didn't turn out too bad. Should hold up for a long time. Well, now all that's left for this arm is dissolving that shaft out of here with muriatic acid. This acid will pretty much just eat away all the aluminum, and this is only going to work because that's an aluminum shaft, and it'll just leave the steel. Now, this stuff is really nasty. We're going to want to be wearing gloves, a respirator if you had it. Do it definitely outside because it makes a lot of fumes, and you don't want to be breathing any of those fumes. It will burn your lungs. It's chlorine gas. Uh, yeah, just be safe with this. And if you're not comfortable with it, maybe don't do it. Find a different way. So this is a setup I'm going to be using. I have an old Nesco roaster that we don't use anymore because tomato sauce ate all the paint off. But this acid will eat it more. Just going to take our arm, set it in here, and I'm just going to take and fill it up to right about the top level of what that shaft is. We're just going to let her go. Again, do not be breathing any of these fumes. All right, back away. You can see it turned yellow almost immediately there. And we'll take a closer look. We'll stay upwind of it. You can see how fast that just starts to work. And probably within 12 hours, maybe 24, that should be gone. So it's definitely not a right away thing, but this is the easiest way I've found to, you know, take these aluminum shafts out because they just corrode in there so hard. So now that we have that shaft melting, let's start on some bogey wheels because we got 8 of them here to deal with. Uh, might as well start with these two since we got that bolt out already. Basically, they're just pressed on here, and I think this one's actually just gonna flop off. So that was easy. But basically, what we're going to do is just inspect it, make sure all of our rubber is still there. It is a little dry cracked, but honestly, it's not that bad. And one of these is like $50. So I think we can run this one. Our back two are a little bit worse. Yeah, they're missing some chunks and stuff. So taking these out is pretty easy. You just need your snap ring pliers. Put those in there. Don't shoot yourself in the eye. That one almost got lost on us. And yeah, now all you'd have to do is flip this over and we'll press it out. We're just going to take and pop our bogey wheel in. I'm using a socket as a spacer because this is too big to go through our hole. And we're just going to set that in there and crank away. You don't want to use too much pressure. They should go fairly easily. And I'm just kind of feeling on the bottom, and it's definitely moving. Got to remember it's only plastic in here, so you don't want to give her too hard. And there we go. One crusty, rusty bearing. Then I always like to come over to the workbench again, and we're just going to take a pick and chase this snap ring groove out. You can see all that crusty dirt and stuff that's just getting in there. And we want to make sure that our bearing seat surface is also really clean. If it's not, the bearing probably won't go down all the way, and you won't be able to get that snap ring back in at all. So once you get that all spick and span cleaned out, we'll grab our new bearing and head back over to the press. So back over here, I like to slide these over so we get a nice flat surface to press on. We'll pop our wheel in there. New bearing. These are 6205s. That's going to be most bogey wheel sizes. Pop it in. And we're not pressing through anymore, so we shouldn't need a spacer. Let's make sure we're centered and square. There we go. And it's going to go real easy until it doesn't. Then you stop. Like right there, firmed up. Let her off. And then I always like to just rotate it 180 degrees. Press it back in just in case it isn't square. There we go. Alrighty. And we should be all set. Now for the relatively easy part. Not that anything else has been hard. With the press, that makes this pretty simple. And we're just going to pop the snap ring back in. Make sure she gets seated in the groove. Sometimes those pins don't let it sit all the way down. There it goes. And yep, that is one rebuilt bogey wheel. So one fun thing is that some of these bogey wheels have these plastic bushings in the bearings. It's a 6205 bearing, but instead of the inch shaft that it goes on like a 5/8 or something. Little guy like this presses in there. And that's what these are from. The middle wheels on the front of the suspension here. And basically, you may or may not be able to save them, but I'm just going to carefully take and hopefully I can get in between these two, because what it is two little top hat looking things that get pressed in there. just to bush it down. So hopefully I can catch a lip and get it out of there. Oh boy, did I get lucky. I did not break any of these. They all still look pretty usable. Granted, they should probably be replaced. Some of them have some weather stress cracking, but we're not going to worry about that right now because that's a couple days wait and I don't have that. New blue bearing. Then all it's going to be is a little tap tap, or not even really. Just press in there. Little tap tap. There we go. Other side. There we go. Good as new. And we only got, 6, 7 more to do. So it's the next afternoon, and our shaft is pretty much all melted out of here. We can take it out. And to neutralize the acid, I've got baking soda right here that we're going to just kind of pour on here. And then to make sure we get it all off, we're going to wash it off in a baking soda bath. Just like making a baking soda volcano like we did in 2nd grade science. And basically just going to let this sit here for a little while until everything stops bubbling. I am wearing gloves for this, just in case, not all of the acid gets neutralized. And then before I dump that out, I'm going to dump my baking soda in there as well to kind of dilute it down and make it less potent. But you can see all of the yellow and black stuff. That's all our dissolved aluminum. Nasty. Before we get all crazy with the paint on this arm, we're going to do something to keep these shafts from ever seizing up again. And that's going to be adding grease zerks. Why they never did this from the factory is beyond me, but basically we're just going to take a 1/4 inch by 28 thread nut, and that's what our little grease zerk threads into. We'll weld the nut onto our arm, and then we'll be able to grease the shaft while it's on the snowmobile without having to remove the entire suspension. We want to make sure we put these in good spots. We're going to do 2, 1 on each side up here, 1 in the center of this shaft, and then 1 down here. The arm is going to sit like this on the suspension, so we want it kind of in the middle here, pointing up. And that shouldn't interfere with the shock mount either. Just a little 1/8 inch hole will do. And, now be sure to take a rat tail file and make sure we don't have any burrs on that inside that could possibly catch that shaft. Again, not too bad. I like to keep the grease zerk in there while I weld, just in case the inside threads don't quite hold up. Little spray paint action here. Well, we're finally to the point of being able to reassemble some stuff. I think if you've made it this far in the video, maybe consider subscribing to the channel. You obviously like watching me do stuff. Let's start with our rear arm idler assembly. This is the shaft that our idlers ride on, and these are held in place with some spacers. So they just slide over like so, and then we're going to build it like this. Come on. There we go. And it is kind of just not even really a press fit. Well, the press comes from the bolt presses these together, and all the centers kind of press together to hold the center race as the bogeys spin. And then we'll put this one in. I like to put the snap rings towards the center. And then we got our last spacer, just like that. So then we're ready to throw this on top of our arm. This will just drop in here like so. And I'm going to slobber this bolt up with anti-seize because the last guy did it and it really helped us. And hopefully without making too big of a mess, slide this guy back in there. That's a big mess. No shame in using the hammer to send it home. And then we'll just tighten that up. Now to mount our arm on the back here, it's held on by these two slip bushings. I've only got used ones, but they've only been used once, so we can turn them a quarter and still have a fresh bearing surface. So we're just going to throw these in here. That's going to be a lot of screwing around. I'll just show you what it looks like. I'll put back together. So there you can see we've got arm washer and our bushing is in there. And then another washer. And you don't want to over tighten these. Otherwise you will start to bind stuff. But just so that way the bolts are snug, you should have some lock nuts on the insides here. Let's get some bogey wheels on this thing. I was able to find some all black wheels. They were used at my local sports shop. Shout out to Robin. Yeah, they were only like $10 a piece, which that's pretty reasonable actually. So we've got a correct set. All this really is pressing them on here. Let's see. And a little persuasion. It's good recommendation to throw a little dab of Loctite on here, just so that way nothing ever works its way out. Let's turn our attention next to the front of the suspension, and specifically these bushings here. We can see there's a big groove worn in it, and it actually ate into the shaft a little bit as well. So there's nothing we can really do about the shaft other than turn it a little bit. But we'll get this off next, and just new bushings. I've got some new ones here. Our rail should just slide sideways. These will come off. And on this suspension, mine is seized, but we're just going to take here and rotate it a bit. To a new section. We'll put that really worn part in the back and then slobber this up with anti-seize again. And all we're going to do is slide these on. Should be a relatively tight fit. They're new. There we go. And the anti-seize. And then once we get our suspension together, I'll do the insides of these as well, where the spring is going to ride. Let's move on to our front arm now. I've got a brand new shaft that's going to go in here. We'll take and grease that up. This one is steel, so I should never have to worry about it corroding too bad in there again, especially with our grease zerks. We're just going to slide that in there, and we can see it rolls nice and free. And I'm just going to shoot a couple pumps of grease in there. Now all we should have to do is take and wedge this in here. being a little bit of a pain in the butt because we've got all these other things on it. And it should really be a tight fit. There we go. Now we should be able to take our big long bolt and send that through. Find the hole. There we go. And I get anti-seize everywhere. Just a couple love taps. There we go. And we can finish putting it on this side. That moves really nice. Next order of business is going to be getting this front shaft put in. You can see I've got my eye bolts in already. And for that we need our springs, which means they have to go on here correctly. So your hooks are going to go towards the center. And then also new shaft again. Get this set in like that. And we should just be able to press this one in there. There we go. Keep going. Perfect. Now I'm going to take and hook our eye bolts into the springs. There's that one. And this one. Now the trick is going to be popping these over that. Just like so. Now I'm going to go ahead and set the pre-tension on our front arm to about halfway up these little eye bolts here, and that should take and put tension on our spring and raise up the front arm. There we are, and you can see we got a good amount of tension on our springs, and both of our little bushings here roll. So that's going to be good. I'll put some grease in this shaft, then we can put our shock in. This part's pretty simple. It's just, putting the bolts through. Alrighty, then we'll tighten those up. I went ahead and put this shaft in, so last but not least is putting on our main springs. I want to make sure they get all the way in there. Flop it in. And this side. And there we are. Well, that's going to do it for this video, guys. I already got the suspension put back in, and just in time for the snow we got. We got about 4 inches, so I think we're going to take this thing for a ride.